All right, are we live? I think we're live. All right, can people hear me? All right, it looks like you guys can hear me. I'm gonna lower the input just a little bit. All right, so as you can see, I'm still getting stuff set up a little bit. So literally, my computer finally got up like an hour ago. I've been running on my laptop for like a month now because we've just been trying to troubleshoot all these issues I've been having with my PC. Just crazy stuff. Eventually, we found out that my OS, which may or may not have been a legal copy of the operating system, no confirmation, had become corrupted and just kind of was breaking down the hard drive it was on. So just had to get a new hard drive, had to get a new OS, an official OS with a passcode and everything. The joys of building your own computers. And then, yeah, I tried to save as much of the files as possible from the old hard drive. Got all my program files, just don't have the apps at the moment. So that's what I'm working on right now. It's just kind of getting everything up and running. I thought maybe I could have it up and running in time for the stream. But as you can see, Cubase is still downloading. It should be up and ready. We'll kind of set it up together, shall we? I figured I'd kept you guys waiting long enough. Might as well get on the stream now. I figured we can just kind of chat, right? So, how's everybody doing? What do you guys want to talk about while we wait for this stuff? I guess I could do kind of announcements. As a reminder, channel members, starting February, we're doing a live stream together for just channel members, where we will be going one chapter through my textbook per week. For those of you who don't know, my textbook is all about learning how to compose. It starts with chapter 1, which starts teaching you how to read sheet music, and goes all the way to chapter 36, where you're polishing your professional level orchestral arrangements. All right, so if you want to learn more about what's in the book, you can go to my website, tabletopcomposer.com. You can go to my bookstore, my bookshop. And there's a table of contents here. So just kind of killing time. How close are we? We're not that far. Should be a minute or two. Table of contents is here. We will be going, if you want to see what the streams are going to be, this is the agenda for the streams starting in February. Again, this is for channel members exclusively. Patrons will get recorded copies of the streams uploaded to Patreon. Again, I apologize for not giving you access, not being able to give you access to the streams themselves. If you want to leave Patreon and just become a channel member, that would be wonderful. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so like stream 1, we're going to learn about reading music and pitch. Stream number 2 is reading music and rhythm. Then chapter 3 is, you can see, major key harmony, minor key harmony, modal harmony. Yeah, so basically this is the stream schedule. You do not need a copy of the book to participate in the streams. You can just follow along with the streams if you'd like. However, if you are interested, the book is currently on sale for 20% off. My phone is buzzing. Let me double check it's not an emergency. Nope. So I'm going to mute it. Mute. There we go. And yeah, how are we coming along with... all right, we're getting there. We're getting there. Let's see. Alex. Hey, welcome back, Alex. It's been a little minute. I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back to the streams, my friend. We got 23. We got Sudhanva. We've got Tamashi. Awesome. We got all kinds of regulars here. So welcome, everybody. Welcome. If you're new, welcome. If you're a regular, welcome back. But yeah, so right now we're just kind of waiting for Cubase to finish re-downloading. As you can see, it's an ancient version of Cubase. I use Cubase 9.5. I really should update it, but I just know 9.5 so well, and I haven't really had a reason to update other than just trying to keep up with everybody. So I don't know. I'll probably update eventually, but it's not a high priority for me at the moment. What kind of questions y'all got? I got a really cool one recently, actually. Someone wants to know about my process for composing from a script, because I've done a lot of work with theater, and that's one of the really cool things. So I'll probably do a video about that. That sounds like fun. Because yeah, composers are being brought on to the projects earlier and earlier. Traditionally, composers were part of the post-production, meaning that after everything was recorded, after everything was pretty much edited, that's when the composer came on and the composer wrote the music. But more and more recently in the past decades or so, largely due to the pioneering impact of composers like Hans Zimmer, especially Hans Zimmer and a lot of the composers that he has trained, like Harry Gregson Williams, uh, why am I blanking? There's so many composers who were trained by Hans Zimmer. Tom Holkenberg, Pinar Toprak. No shortage of amazing composers who were started off as apprentices to Hans Zimmer. But they all started getting earlier and earlier to the point now where the composer is very frequently one of the first people brought on before the script is even finished, because directors really like working with a sound palette. They like to listen to music written for their story while they work on ideas for bringing that story to life. So, doing, yeah, kind of a video about how, especially with my experience with theater, working with just a script and writing music that captures the story, captures the characters, and kind of sets the pacing when we don't even have actors yet. It was definitely an acquired skill set that took quite a while to kind of get used to, especially since most film programs, like with Berkeley, are still a little outdated in terms that they treat it all like a post-production job, like you're going to have an actual video to watch while you score, which is very helpful, but not always the case. All right, we are so close, so close. One more gig. Mark, any tips on arranging for duets with only two voices? What chord tones would you prioritize? Ooh, that's a very good idea. That's a very good point. So for duets, um, a lot of the harmony is going to be implied. So chords are useful as a starting point, but when you only have two voices for a duet, you got to stop thinking of like chords. And you got to just start thinking of the harmony between the two voices. Um, so I would start, especially if you're doing two voices, I would prioritize writing the melody first, making sure you've got the melody. And then the chord progressions, of course, chord progressions are very helpful as a guide. But then I would personally treat it more contrapuntally than harmonically. I would think about the role of my second voice. Does it need to be another interesting melody? Does it need to be more of a bass line? Does it need to be more of a pedal? If you want it, if you really, really want it to kind of harmonize and like emphasize the harmony, and you're just trying to do your best to create the illusion of chords with just two voices, you could, in theory, I'd say, work with an arpeggio. Like the second voice could do an arpeggio. Maybe it's a duet between like a flute and a piano, and so you're able to do all kinds of stuff. Or maybe it's two flutes. You got a flute and like an alto flute or a bass flute. So you've got the bass flute or alto flute doing some arpeggio figures or some ostinato figures. Haha, there we go. That allow you to kind of create the illusion of like the harmony. Like it helps solidify the harmony a bit more. But if you are looking for very specific which notes to harmonize, if you're working with triads, emphasize the root and the third. The root and the third are the notes of the harmony that give the chord its quality. For example, C minor and C major. All right, the quality there is major or minor. So C major is C, E natural, and G. C minor is C, E flat, and G. All right, so both chords contain both C and G. So how do you tell what the quality of a given chord is? It's through the third. The third, that E natural or E flat, is what's going to tell you. That middle note in a triad is what's going to tell you. Is this a major chord? Is it a minor chord? Is it a suspended chord? Is it a diminished? Well, I guess with the diminished, the fifth would be more important as well. But yeah, other than diminished and augmented, the fifth isn't really all that important. The root lets you know what the root of the chord is, obviously. If the C within a C natural or a C major is what allows it to be a C major or C minor. But the third is the most important in terms of telling the quality. If you're working with sevenths, then those important notes extend to the seventh. So the root, third, and seventh are most important for the quality. But yeah, if you really, 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 really wanted to emphasize the harmony, I would say give your melody to one instrument, and then in the duet, the second voice should focus on a harmonic type accompaniment, something like an arpeggio, maybe a slow-moving ostinato, just making sure that whatever it is, it doesn't distract from the melody. So if you've got a very fast-moving arpeggio, I'm killing myself that Cubase is not on right now. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. Apologies to the YouTube people. Can I open Cubase now? So let's see here. Let's see here. Cubase. Let's go to Steinberg. Do I have a... Aha! Cubase is opening! Just on my other screen. So I'll pull it up once it's finished opening. But let's see here. Welcome, Marion. My voice is just set in the left. There is no sound in the right side. All right, so let's see here. Thank you. That's an easy enough fix. Properties. It's because of my audio box. Let's see. How do I do advanced audio properties? There we go. All right. How about now? That I set it to mono. That should fix it. Thank you for letting me know. So those of you who don't know, my computer, I'm setting it up as we speak live. My computer has had to go through significant please reinstall. All right. My computer has had to go through significant we won't do that. Cancel. Cancel. I don't need all of these plugins. So I've got a new operating system for my computer because I was having issues with the operating system. And now I'm having to get everything set up. So what is this? Does it need to be my e-licenser? No, I don't need Waves 13. I don't need Waves. All right. It keeps wanting me to... All right, let's see here. Opening, initializing. We'll use the voice meter as my SEO, as my audio driver. Ha ha ha! Behold! Cubase is running. All right, please take time to register Cyber Prize. Already registered. Okay, I'll do that. We got Cubase. But let's see. Oh, Cubase is going to need to get set up again. This looks janky. This is why. Yeah, you know what? Let's just see here. Add instrument. Do I even have Contact? I don't know if I have Contact anymore. I mean, I've got Contact, but I'm going to have to download it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you, Marion. I got the audio fixed. Let's see here. Sean, here we go. It can't be found. You'll be forwarded to the download page. Okay, so we got download native access. Download for Windows. So we'll get that going. So, yeah, I'm going to just put a notepad up on here. So we don't have to. Let's see here. Get that. Let's do a project. Notepad. Where's the notepad? Why is the notepad not showing up? Here's the notepad. It's in the other window. All right, so I'm just going to write a note for everybody. My computer has a new OS. Still getting set up. So we're just chatting. Add your questions, thoughts to the comments. All right, so that's what I'm going to put down. I'm going to have this here. Going to zoom in so everybody can see it. We're just going to leave that there while I work on downloading all of my stuff again. And when I clicked on that, it disappeared, didn't it? Yes, I want to allow that. So, yeah, let's see what else we got. All right, sorry for scaring you, 23. Sean Gilbert, you would think it was a surprise, but it wasn't a surprise. This has been in the works for like a month. So if you're new, I was saying I built my computer years ago, and now it's kind of like a Frankenstein computer. I think like every single part has been replaced except for the graphics card, which is still original to this computer. And just use your imagination, but the OS may or may not, that I was working with, the OS may or may not have been a registered one. Or I may or may not have had the key code or whatnot. It may have been something from a friend. But apparently years and years later, after cloning the OS multiple times, allegedly, It just started getting kind of janky. So my computer started having issues, and so it came times like, all right, I gotta finally buy an OS. Problem was like the old OS, because it was getting so janky, had done a number on my hard drive. And so it took a very long time to make sure I didn't lose any of my most important files. Um, aha, here we go. Sign in with Google. This. Sign that. And so now I had to buy a new OS. I just got Windows 11 literally installed today. And so now I'm having to get everything reset up. But yeah, so I'm very, very, very excited to finally have my computer back, though. It's going to be annoying having to get all this set back up and running the way it used to, getting all of my settings exactly where I wanted them. I already had to set up Voicemeeter and OBS and Cubase, just like in the last hour or so. Trying to sign in. Trying to sign into Native Instruments so I can get my... You know what? We'll do that again another time. Let's try this one. So yeah, how's people's lives going? Any questions about music or whatnot? Just kind of hanging out at this point. There we go. Logging into Native Access. Look at this. Actually, you know what? I just realized I don't have to do this. I have all of these downloaded. I just need to locate them. So let's go to Workspaces, VST Plugin Manager. And we're going to VST Instruments. We're going to add one. Where is it? All right. We'll drag this over here so you don't have to look at all my files. Let's see here. This PC, it's gonna be on my 2 terabyte hard drive. Sound libraries. All right, there we go. Locate that. Let's see here. Select that. There are so many of these that are just like, I don't need all of those. I don't need any of the plugins that came with Steinberg. I just need... Okay, what's that one going on now? It's not running. Please install the product or download and run the Lilac license management installer here. Okay. I don't need that one. Cancel. Yeah, I'm going to have to go through all kinds of stuff here. 23. May I suggest turning off the Windows notification dings? That would be very helpful. How do I do that? I am surprisingly not well versed in technology, if you can't tell. Yes, I built my computer years ago when I used to be really, really into this stuff, but I have not kept up. And so now I rely heavily on my roommate who has kept up with this stuff. So yeah, how do I do that? Because I don't want to like be blowing your guys' ears up constantly. Sutanva, I got your motion course and I love it. In general, I repent why I didn't find your YouTube channel earlier on. Awesome. Thank you very much. A nice little advertisement. Let's go onto that before we do the notification thing. So what Sutanva is talking about. Thank you, my friend. See, awesome. Testimonials, emotions, and music. You can enroll now. So the emotions and music class has gone through a little bit of a change. I can show you guys that. I can show you the tentative outline for... here's my breakdown of the updates. So there's going to be 10 modules for the new class. Each module is going to have like dozens of videos. You can see class orientation, the composer as a storyteller, the goal to establish the composer storytelling, the foundational tools they use, writing memorable themes and motifs. That's going to be a module, portraying emotions through music. That module is basically going to be this entire class. So this class right here started off as like one of my passion projects. Many of you know that I started off as going to school to be a therapist. And it was while I was studying in grad school to be a therapist that I realized I'm not cut out to be a therapist. I'm not good at leaving that stuff behind at the end of the workday. I love it. I love therapy. I love helping people. I love psychology, but I just couldn't be a therapist. It wasn't something I was capable. I didn't have the skills for it. So I ended up becoming a composer instead, funnily enough. Something else I didn't have the skills for, but managed to find them along the way. And so this class is kind of like one of my passion projects for teaching a lot of tools that therapists have for understanding emotions to composers so that you can really understand. It's no mystery why music portrays emotions. For whatever reason, composers and like musicians seem to be like to view emotions in music as this mysterious thing. Like, oh, music has this innate ability we don't understand. It's like, no, we understand it. In the therapy world, we 100% understand why music is able to portray emotions. We have a very clear understanding of how music portrays emotions, why it portrays emotions, and not only that, we also understand the theory behind how you could manipulate music to portray just about any emotion you want. And being a professional composer and a former therapist who understands all this stuff, I'm kind of in a very perfect situation where I can bridge the gap, where I can actually teach the tools necessary to not only understand that model, but to actually teach you like within the music lingo of how composers understand it and how you can do it. So that's what this class is. This class is all about basically teaching you all the tools that therapists understand about why music portrays emotions in the first place. And then not just the theory behind it, but how you can actually manipulate that yourself. So the class itself is getting updated so it goes beyond just emotions. It's going to be all about storytelling and literally like how do you write an entire masterful soundtrack that portrays every little detail of a story. So much like it's very inspired by the strategies and example of Howard Shore for Lord of the Rings. That's what this class is going to be. It's going to be an expansion of this one. And to help make time for it, I have dissolved the cohort program for this class. So this class used to be taught in cohorts, meaning like once every 7 weeks, I would open it for enrollment for new students. And then we'd get a class together, and then we would do it as a class. But organizing a class, having to do a whole class load of homework assignments and grading, having to communicate and send out frequent emails and stuff, it's just one extra thing on my plate. So I decided to just change it. You now can enroll in the class whenever you want. You can study at your own pace. It's no longer timed. And instead of having weekly live lessons with the class, you just get 3 private lessons. All right, you get 3 private lessons because that's easier for me to schedule, to work around my schedule, just working with private students because I already have private students I work with. Instead of having to coordinate a time that works for a class of 10 different people, I can just coordinate individual lessons as necessary. So when you sign up, you get an email that invites you. It gives you the process for how to apply for your lessons, basically like schedule with me. If you want to see what the course curriculum is, it's right here. But yeah, you can sign up. And the cool part that I want to point out is everyone who takes this class or signs up for this class will get grandfathered into the new one. So when the new one, which is going to be at least 10 times larger, so what, like the entire emotions class is going to fit into like module 4. So this has like 51 articles, videos, examples, etc. All of those are going into module 4. So this class has 10 modules. So you can imagine how this is going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos and stuff that I'm working on. It's going to be a massive class. And everyone who takes this class is just going to get grandfathered in because I view the new class as an expansion of this one, and I don't believe in paying twice for the same thing. So if you've paid for this class, you're just going to get free access to the update when it comes out, which will probably be about 6 months from now is my timeline for what I'm planning. About 6 months from now, this class will get updated, and then everyone who enrolled in previous cohorts or signed up for just studying at their own pace will get grandfathered in, but then this one will get discontinued as the updated version will come out. And honestly, because it's going to be about like 10 times as big, it's probably going to be at least twice as expensive. At least. We'll see. We'll see. I'll do like some marketing research or something. I'm trying to get better at business stuff. And I'm supposed to be doing market research, I heard. I don't know what that is. I have a very shaky idea. I think it's basically I just ask you guys, hey, here's the class. How much would you be willing to pay for it, in theory? And just take like the average answer or something like that. But yeah, so that's what Sun Hunva is talking about. So thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed the class. Thank you. 23, change notification settings, select, start, select. All right, let's do this. All right, so start, select settings, system select, notifications. So it's not turned off. And then so 23 says system select notifications, clear the allow notifications to play sounds option. So allow. Would that be under additional settings? Additional settings. Get helps. Show the welcomes. Suggest. Okay. All right. I'm not seeing it. 23. Where are these? Oh, here we go. There we go. All right. Excellent. All right. Thank you. So now you guys should not be getting those annoying. That's awesome. That is something that was annoying me in previous streams. Were those notification things. Dylan, welcome. So yeah, right now, for those of you who don't know, kind of just getting everything reset up. Got that taken care of. So for those of you who don't know, I'll put that back up there. Let's see here. Do I have access to contact now? Manage libraries. Oops. So that was not notification. That was just Cubase. Interface handling loading. So that's not where this is from. This should be in. We'll bring this over here so you guys don't have to look at all this. Let's go to this PC, go to my second one, go to sound libraries, hit OK. Close, hit refresh. No? Memory database. Let's try changing this a little bit more. Hit that. Database, libraries, launch native access. So then let's see what we got here. Let's do locate. Let's change this. So let's change. Where is maintenance? Let's see. We'll put this here. This will be on disk 6. There we go. It's that. Do that. Why'd that not allow me to do that? All right, let's see here. But yeah, so I'm basically let's get this back up so people can see it. Getting that going. Let's see what other people go those. That's one of those fancy. All right, Sean Gilbert. I remember when I read your earlier book, sometimes I wonder if it's more effective to appeal to specific emotions or to appeal to the feel of a neurochemical for music. Also, it's one of those fancy aesthetic questions of how valuable it is to express emotion, arouse emotion, or to depict emotion. So, express emotion, arouse emotion, or to depict emotion are all kind of the same thing, if you think about it. So, and express the emotion. The composer trying to express themselves, to trying to depict a specific emotion with their music. Now, whether or not this could be a whole philosophical argument. So rather than try to go into areas beyond my area of expertise, I'm going to speak from the lens of a professional composer and the lens of a former therapist. So the quick rundown to emotions and music. Well, first we'll say emotions and music, right? How do we understand emotions? So even beyond that, what are emotions? So emotions are a tool for making sense of these sensory experiences around the world, all right? Emotions are one of the many tools that human beings use to make sense of the world around them, all right? So you experience fear, All right, you touch a hot stove, you burn your hand as a kid, and then you're scared of like hot things for the rest of your life. You're scared of fire. All right, that fear is how you make sense of the dangers surrounding that hot stove. All right, you have an unpleasant experience with a person, and so you start to get anxiety when that person is around. That anxiety is one way you make sense. You navigate your understanding of that person and your experience with that person. So emotions can be a very tricky thing because a lot of people don't have the vocabulary to understand their own emotions. In fact, this tends to be a very real issue facing many therapists, is when the young child doesn't understand the difference between anger and frustration. So whenever they get frustrated, they just default to anger because that's how they understand. They don't see the differences between the two. So there have been many different tools developed to help explore emotions and to experience them. One of them is called the circumplex model of affect, or the CMA, which posits, it's an older model, it has been updated, but I'm using this one specifically because it works really, really well for musicians. The circumplex model of affect posits that emotions come down to an experience of two things: valence and energy, or we shall say arousal is the official term. So valence refers to how positive or negative the emotional experience is, whereas arousal refers to how intense the emotion is. So grief would be a very negative experience, experienced very intensely. Sadness would be a negative experience, experienced moderately, not necessarily as intensely as grief when you compare the two. Now, arousal we can further explain as intensity slash, or we'll break this down. Let's just break it down for the music. So for music, we can explain this model further. We can break this model down further into valence plus size, or we'll say plus intensity, plus energy. All right, so we're going to break this model into three areas. How well can you describe an emotion based off how negative or positive is it on a sliding scale? How intense is the emotion on a sliding scale? And how energizing or depleting is the emotion on a sliding scale? Now, the reason why these are so very useful is because if we can describe, for example, tragedy as being dark, as being intense, and being very depleting, we'll call this grief, not tragedy. Intense and depleting. All right. The really cool thing is this very same description can be used to describe music that portrays grief. It needs to sound dark, it needs to have a large size, intense, and it needs to have low energy, or depleting. So if you can describe your emotion across these three different parameters of valence, intensity, and energy, you have a very nice description of the emotion itself and the music that will be necessary to portray it. So excitement being a very bright emotion, being a very intense emotion, and being a very energizing emotion. Well, suddenly to portray excitement, you just need to find a way to make your music bright, find a way to make it feel big and large and intense, and to make it sound very high energy, right? Now, of course, there's a lot of nuance to this. There's a lot of subjectivity. There's a lot of tailoring to different situations. There's a lot of personalizing it to the story and to the personal styles and approaches of the composer. For example, what strategies do you use for intensity? For size, do you focus on instrumentation? Do you focus on dynamics? Do you focus on texture? Do you focus on the number of octaves being used? There's lots of nuance to this. But the basic model is very, very simple. Just start with these three. Can you describe your emotion across these three elements? If so, you can understand how to portray that music with energy. It's the same description. The emotion with music. It's the same description. I'm getting taken away. Let's see here. Perfect. Awesome. Hi. Welcome. What is the goal for today's composition? Hi, Dylan. Today doesn't have a goal for the composition. At the moment, today's goal is my computer's getting set up. I had hoped to get something written, but we'll see what happens. Right now, the goal is just kind of hanging out while I try to get my computer running. All right. I had to buy a new OS for this computer because the old one may or may not have been a ripoff that crashed and kind of failed after a decade of using it. And so again, not incriminating myself here, but I had to buy an actual new official one. This one's completely official. That one is not conjecture. This one is completely legit. And so now my computer's just all out of whack. Now I got to get everything set back up. I got to teach native access how to find all of my files. And right now I just kind of got off on a little thing about portraying emotions in music. So, emotions in music. So all of this to say, is music inherently emotional? The answer is yes, of course. And this is not up to debate. All right. Now, you might decide, hey, well, what does it mean to be inherently emotional? But if it goes back to our understanding of emotions, emotions are a tool. Emotions are a method for human beings to navigate the world around them. Your emotions help keep you alive by helping you make sense of the stimuli all around you. Your emotional response to something helps you make sense of that something. So, if music exists as a stimulus, it will, by definition, evoke an emotional response. Now, that emotional response could be apathy. It could be that you just don't care about it. That is an emotional response, though. So music being a stimulus, I'm going to put this down. Emotions are a method humans use to make sense of the stimuli in the world around them. Music is a type of stimulus. Is a stimulus. I'm just put that. So it, by definition, invites an emotional response. Now, of course, you could argue that some music is going to evoke different emotional responses in different people. That is very true. That is a very valid argument. However, there are ways that you can minimize that variety. There are strategies and tools to say, hey, if I played this piece of music for 100 people, 95 of them would describe it as having the same basic emotion. Whereas you could say, I'm going to write this piece of music, and of the 100 people, maybe like 25 of them will be around the same ballpark, and the rest will just have like all kinds of weird, like you're going to have all different groupings of different people describing it. That tends to happen for things like anger. Anger tends to be a very difficult emotion to describe, and requires some additional attention to detail and intentionality. Because for reasons like, okay, we're not going to go into that because that's literally an entire module in my class. So if you want to check this out, this is literally this entire class. You can see, Module 4. So yeah, week 4 is all about anger and related emotions and why they're so freaking difficult to portray. Because you could write a piece of music that's supposed to be angry, and you can play it for 10 different people, and they're all going to have a different description. This guy says it sounds epic. This lady says it sounds like an action cue. This person says it sounds dark. This person says it sounds tragic. This person says it's angry. Hey, awesome. I want to be friends with that person. They understood what I was going for. But you get the point. Some emotions are harder to portray than others, in which case that's why we have these tools called gestures and additional context to help portray. So all of this you can learn from the class. If you purchase the class, you get 3 private lessons with me as well that you can schedule. They are optional. You don't have to schedule them. And you will be grandfathered into the massive class expansion. But if it's not quite in your budget, there are payment plans available, but if it's not quite in your budget, there is a book version of the class as well that doesn't come with private lessons, doesn't come with like homework assignment and feedback or anything like that. But you can go through all of the articles and everything in this book here. Where am I going at? Where am I going with this? Let's see. What's everybody else saying? Sudhanva, what are your best keyboard shortcut and workflow practices on Cubase? I've got one. I will give you two. Two. Keyboard shortcuts that I use all the time. Is the Alt button. So I go to the split button, I hit the Alt button, and whatever interval I'm dividing it into, it's going to get that for me. It'll split everything evenly. So that is the Alt plus split tool. All right. So that's one. Another one is if I want to take this and I want to just copy it by dragging it, it's again Alt button and drag. So Alt plus drag equals copy / paste to different tracks. Those are the most useful ones that right off the top of my head that I use a lot. I'm sure there are many, many more. Let's see here. Sean, not gonna lie, most of my understanding of psychology is homebrew, conjectural, Wikipedia, rabbit holes. That is no worries, no worries. I do wonder if arousal comes from neoepinephrine versus GABA, and valence comes from like endorphin versus cortisol. So there's a lot of different ways you can think about this. You could think of it from a neurobiology standpoint. That's not necessarily where my expertise is. I took maybe like 3 classes on neurobiology, but I was never really passionate for it the way I was in, say, like personality, social, or clinical psych. Now, I would say if that's something you're interested in, go for it. Study it. That's awesome. I am all for hobbies and diving into different topics. I am a huge strength athlete nerd. So I have an unusual understanding of physiology, human adaptation, hypertrophy training methodologies, strength training methodologies. At some point in the near future, like within a year or two, I want to get my a certified strength and conditioning specialist license, which would basically license me to be a professional strength coach for like football teams or athletes and stuff like that, just because I want to, just because it'd be fun. I'm a huge nerd about that. Not because I want to have a career in it, not because it's necessary for my survival, but just because it's something I love studying. So if you love studying neurobiology, like my roommate, who's an actual therapist, go for it. That's amazing. He does that a lot. But if you're trying to just make sense of how to portray emotions with music, it's not necessary. Literally, all you need to do is have, all right, so if you wanted to do, here's the trick. All right, how to learn, portray emotions with music if you don't want to buy my class. All right, so I'm going to break this down for you. Please do buy my class. It helps pay my bills. It helps me keep doing what I love to do. But I'm going to make my business consultant very angry because she tells me I give away too many things for free. But forget that. I like helping people. So here's your step-to-step process. If you want to learn how to portray emotions with music and you don't want to spend a bunch of money supporting someone like me. Number 1, master the understanding of valence, size, and energy. All right, I'll give this to you right now. Valence equals how dark or bright an emotion is. All right, so for example, my litmus test I said, would you want a loved one to experience this emotion? All right. That'll help you figure out whether you think it's a dark or bright emotion. So you're going to want to come up with your own process. In my class, I teach a 5-category process for thinking of valence. I'm not going to give you that one for free. Just because, you know, your boy's got to eat. Then size equals how intense or intimate an emotion is. All right. Then the third one is energy. How energizing / depleting an emotion is. So again, another way to think about this is instead of how energizing or depleting emotion is, you can think of it as how physically expressive an emotion is. So excitement, you get like really excited, you're jumping up and down, you're dancing, you're rubbing your hands together, you're laughing, you're shouting. Depression, you're just kind of slumped over. All right, you don't have any energy. You don't get enjoyment from the things that you used to get enjoyment from, and you just want to lay in bed and cease to exist. All right? Very different ends of the physical expressive range. But this is a very fundamental rudimentary explanation. But master this understanding, and I would say master this understanding because this is the most useful tool, even for spotting in a film. Being able to say, all right, in this scene, the valence shifts here, here, here. So the scene gets darker here, it gets brighter here, it gets a little more neutral here. You could say size. The music gets more intense. It gets a little more intimate. It needs to get bigger. It needs to come back down, kind of thing. And then energy, of course, being how much energy is in the music. So you could add things like rhythmic subdivision, tempo, the types of layers being involved. There's all kinds of strategies you can use, which brings me to step number 2. Organize your understanding of valence, size, and energy into categories. E.g., dark, bright, neutral. All right, super simple 3 categories. A dark valence for an emotion, a bright valence for an emotion, and just kind of a neutral valence for an emotion. You could say for the size, you could say big, small, medium. You could have a sliding scale like I do for my class for energy and size. There's all kinds of stuff. But once you've organized the different categories, create a list of all the different musical tools, so strategies available to you to help manipulate valence, size, and energy. So if you do these 3 things, you can reverse engineer and create your own tools. You do not need my class. You do not need my book. You can create your own strategies by following these very simple tools. Basically, make sure you understand valence, size, and energy. Make sure you have an understanding, a way of categorizing them and creating a hierarchy. Like, do you have a way of conceptualizing how the size needs to change in a scene? Do you have a way of conceptualizing how the valence needs to change within a story? Do you have a way of conceptualizing how energy is separate from size? Things like that. And then once you have that, it becomes a very simple matter of exploring the different tools available to you as a composer. So, for example, very simple ones. For size, dynamics and instrumentation size. The more instruments you have, the bigger the size. The louder the music, the bigger the size, the more intense it's going to sound. And this idea of valence, size, and energy, you never want to lose touch on the emotional impact. Why are you manipulating these? Size is, of course, anytime you manipulate size, you're trying to manipulate how intense the emotion is. Anytime you manipulate energy, you're trying to manipulate how energizing or depleting the emotion is. And anytime you are manipulating valence, you are very specifically trying to manipulate how dark or bright the emotion you're trying to portray is. So again, a very strong strategy for valence is harmony, finding different tools within music theory and harmony for changing the brightness or valence of your music. Now, that being said, go for it. I gave this to you for free. This isn't something I try to guard. I've done so many videos about this model. If you would like to support me, you can check out the book. If you would like to help me eat or help me upgrade Cubase and do all other expensive things I've had to do for my computer, you can check out the class, which comes with 3 private lessons. The advantage of the class, and you can check out the course curriculum modules, is not only do you get a very in-depth explanation of all of these concepts that completely removes any mystery behind them, taught by a former therapist turned professional composer, so I have my foot very well firmly established in both worlds, but you also get all of my tools available as well. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to come up with your own strategies for how do I control valence. You get all of this taken care of already and just explained to you. You don't have to create a list of different, so in the class, I go through 9 different parameters of music: texture, timbre, tempo, rhythm, dynamics, articulation, pitch or melody, harmony, and did I say dynamics or did I say rhythm? It's one of those 2. But there's 9 parameters. And I go through each one and I talk about very specifically, these are the tools you have, these are how you manipulate them, and this is how you can create very specific emotions. Beyond that, I go through more tricky things like how do you change the emotion of a theme without changing the theme and making it unrecognizable? How do you gradually shift emotions throughout a single scene? How do you portray the tricky emotions that are very difficult? How do you put your own personal twist on these things so they don't sound cliche? All of that gets handled in the class. And again, anyone who signs up for the class gets grandfathered into the expansion when it happens. All right, so let's get back to the comments. 23, maybe next you'll even update Cubase. Yeah, okay, yeah. I know. I'm running Cubase 9.5. They have Cubase 14. I do need to update it. So, guess what? If you want to help your boy update Cubase, check out the class. No, really, I haven't done it because I like Cubase 9.5 and I haven't really had a need to update. But no, yeah, I'm getting more and more comments from people who want to learn how to use the newer Cubase's versions, and I'm fluent. I'm very fluent in 9.5. But manage libraries. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to figure this stuff out. Let's see here. Base. Let's just locate it one at a time. Let's see here. All right, so then I have updated it. So now let's see. Did it pop up? Maybe I have to close. Maybe I have to like close. Contact. I hope I don't have to restart Cubase. I don't think I should have to restart Cubase. Oh yeah, I just had to restart. There we go. Let's see here. Let's just do apps. Let's find contact. Contact 8 is out already? Oh my word. I'm running contact. No. Don't. No. Whatever. It's less than a gig, it looks like. I'll ignore that. Any hoozles. Yeah, so you can see I'm trying to get a bunch of stuff. I gotta fix my computer. If you're seeing this, this was the original comment I had these notes out for. But let's keep going. Dylan, I love what you have to say about breaking down the emotions. I only just started making projects of brief documents before composing, and I find they keep me super focused on what I want to output. Yes. This is something massive. I have never in my life met or heard of a composer other than Mozart and Camille Saint-Saëns, who were both, they're long dead prodigies, who just wrote music like a 3D printer. The vast majority of composers have some process of note-taking. I think the biggest for me, I think it was like 98 pages that I wrote out of notes about characters and themes and the worlds and stuff like that before I even started writing the music. I would say if you want to learn, there's a couple really cool resources. Obviously, this textbook is all about storytelling with music. It'll break down everything. And if you're a channel member, we're going to go through this textbook together starting in February in live streams, private for channel members, 1 chapter per week. So you got that to look forward to. But if you just go tabletop composer, character themes, this video right here, how to compose impactful character themes. This is, again, because I have so much free content out there, this video will give you a really good starting point in terms of how do you brainstorm themes before you write them. The goal should be that, at least for me and my process, is I almost always have a well-written description of what my music's going to sound like before I even start writing it. I already know what kind of harmony it's going to be working with. I know about the general tempo. I know how many layers. I've got a very distinct description, all taken from the character I'm trying to portray. And this goes through my whole process for that, so you can check that out. But no, let's just keep going with comments. So thank you, Dylan. And you're new to the stream, so welcome. Sean, sometimes I wonder if music should be emotional for its own sake or emotional for the sake of ideal arousal or stimulation, where the stimulation is done for a hedonistic purpose. That is a deep question. For example, you say catharsis uses negative emotions for positive emotions. I'd say, yeah, a dance song arouses positive emotions, and so we can say people like it because it feels good. In a sense, it's not emotions, but good feelings. Where emotions are a tool to evoke good feelings, or a lack of emotion leads to boredom or stiffness. I would never ridiculously overthink and theory craft why people value emotion in music or art. So this is a very good point. I would say it goes back to that understanding of what emotions are. Emotions are a method. Right here, here's what it's like. Emotions are a method humans have to make sense of the stimuli in the world. So, going back to your example, saying people like a dance song because it arouses positive emotions, and so we can say people like it because it feels good. That is one way to view it, but if you want to go back a little bit further, it's like, why does dance music sound good in the first place? Because dance music is highly associated with dancing. And have you ever had an experience where you were dancing your heart out? Well, you were just really, really sad. Maybe if you're like a TikTok influencer and you're like one of those people crying but still like going through the dances kind of stuff. I'm sure there's experiences like that, but for the average person, when you dance, you think of like, what is it? Like school dances, thinking of weddings, my family, quinceañeras. There's all kinds of celebrations where dancing is part of the celebration. So is dance music what makes us happy because the music is inherently happy? Or is it because it's associated with these experiences of happy dancing? Now, again, it's cyclical. You could keep going back and say chicken or the egg kind of thing. But in general, we can look at how music is perceived across various cultures to get a little bit of a deeper vibe. So dance music, typically high energy, bright valence, right? But what makes for a bright valence? In Western culture, a lot of our bright valences come from major harmony. But in many non-Western cultures, minor harmony is used to celebrate. And it doesn't sound inherently sad to them because the valence is very, very culturally subjective. But there are very fascinating studies that would suggest energy is not subjective. That energy in music is highly correlated. High energy is very highly correlated with positive emotions, whereas low energy is very highly correlated with sad emotions, which is one of the reasons why angry music is so difficult, because it sends conflicting messages, usually dark valence, but high energy. Now, these studies that suggest this were done on a very, very young population, young children, toddlers, who hadn't been exposed to enough music to yet have a bias towards, oh, this is major harmony, so it sounds happy. I'm going to say this is happy. They hadn't heard enough music to say, oh, I've heard a bunch of happy songs. They all sound like this, so this is happy. So they were exposed to screamo. They were exposed to very sad music with like very ironic lyrics that were high energy. And more than lyrics, more than genre, more than any other variable, rhythmic energy was what seemed to be most highly correlated with whether the child would describe the music as being happy or sad. You could have a very ironic story, like a Smiths song, Girlfriend in a Coma, where it's a very sad, ironic, dark song, but it's high energy. And so if you're not paying attention to lyrics, if you don't have that understanding, it sounds happy. And it doesn't matter if it's got sad, if it's minor harmony and very dark valence. If it's high energy, the children would still describe it as being happy music based off basically that high rhythm. Can you dance to it kind of thing? So there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of really stuff like this. You kind of got me going, this is, like I said, I spent 6 years of my life studying to be a therapist, and you don't do that without loving this stuff. So I couldn't do it professionally. I just found out I wasn't emotionally cut out to be a therapist. I can't talk with people all day long about the worst moments of their life and not go home and feel very sad myself. So I couldn't do it, but I still love this stuff. So you're getting me on a rage. I'm going to pull back because this isn't a psych channel at the end of the day. This is a music channel. And there are some other comments. Let's see here. Dylan, to be fair, I find Mozart's work to be very unemotional, more mathematically stimulating. Interesting that you would say that about Mozart. So a couple things, because Mozart, okay, this is the music nerd. Mozart, being part of the classical period, was moving away from that very highly aristocratic, very highly intellectualized style of the Baroque period. A lot of people don't realize now because there's so much time separating us, but the classical period was very much inspired by the Enlightenment movement, about the humanitarianism, that the average human being has value for just being a human being. And so music went away from being an aristocratic art that appealed only to the wealthy, only to the educated, and started moving much, 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 much more towards the average man, the new emerging middle class. And so you can see that a lot in Mozart's music. When you compare Mozart's opera seria to, or like the serious operas, from the serious operas of the Baroque period, the Baroque period was very extravagant. Lots of what they called coloratura, lots of like trills, lots of like moving all over the place, trying to show off how skilled the singer is. Whereas the classical period very much streamlined everything and said, no, we want to focus on memorable melodies. We want to focus on music that can be understood by the audience the first time they heard it. All right. And then, of course, so the idea that like describing Mozart as being very mathematical, I would say that's just because you lack, like, not, this isn't a dig. I'm just saying, like, you lack context. Like, this is for anyone. Anytime anyone hears a new piece of music, you lack context for that song. Have you ever had a song that you listened to, you didn't like it, and then later down the line you ended up really, really, really enjoying it? That's because the first time you listened to it, you lacked context. You lacked any emotional responses other than just that initial response. You hadn't heard it before, so you couldn't really follow it. You couldn't understand it. But once you've heard a piece of music a couple times and you can understand how each piece fits in. So like when you hear the intro to a song, you're like, ugh, don't like that. But then later on, you really enjoy the hook. And then after you've heard the intro a couple times, it just kind of grows on you. That's because you're getting more context. You're hearing it more and more times. You're being exposed to it more times. You're having more emotional responses, and you're able to actually form a more informed opinion about that music. Not saying that your initial opinion was wrong. Just saying that you haven't exposed yourself. So, like, yeah, Mozart very oftentimes gets, like, lots of classical music gets pushed off as being this fancy music. Music that you go to an opera hall and you listen to Don Giovanni. Or you go to the symphony hall and you listen to one of Mozart's symphonies. It's a very fancy thing, a very high class kind of experience. But what you'll find is the people who tend to love classical music the most are the people who invite it into their lives. People who listen to Mozart while they clean. People who listen to Beethoven while they go for their jogs or walk with their dog. People who have more emotional experiences and stimuli associated with that highbrow music, right? Because the music did not start off as highbrow. Mozart started off as music for the common man, as the pop music of his day. That's why so many times, like, for example, like Classic FM, their Instagram page and their social media page, the comments are so insidious. They're filled with so many haters. They can't make a post without the vast majority of comments just talking about how that post is stupid and the people that it's about are stupid. Because pop music, it's different. Every composer, pretty much every composer that we put on a pedestal these days was lambasted at some point. There is a book called the Lexicon of Musical Invectives. And it's basically just a collection of all of the worst reviews of all the best composers. So critics saying that Beethoven has no future in music. Critics saying that Debussy is just a fad and will be forgotten in a week. People saying that Stravinsky should be killed for writing Rite of Spring because it's just such a stupid piece of music. All of these composers, who, whether you know their name or not, have gone on to shape modern music. We would not have any of the film composers we have today. We would not have any of the classical composers we would today without those who came before. And so the people who claim that like modern music or modern composers just aren't that good or that music's not for them, it's like, fine. That's your opinion, but your opinion is objectively false. I know that sounds a little strong, but if we look at history, I would say chances are your opinion is objectively false as much as an opinion can be objectively false. Because there hasn't been a single new wave of music that wasn't strongly opposed by the public. We have no idea of knowing what the most influential music of today is. We have no idea of knowing. It might be Taylor Swift. However, it could also be someone we have no idea who it is. The most popular and lucrative composers of the Baroque period have been forgotten. We know of them because we know of like tales of their ticket sales and how popular they were. We know how far-reaching their operas were, but we don't know the music because it was super popular, super popular, what's the term I'm looking for? No, just makes lots of money. in its time, but it didn't influence future composers. Contrary, we have composers like Bach, who were nobody. Bach is viewed as like one of the most important figures in modern, in like music. Bach is the reason why so much of our understanding of harmony exists. Like the biggest, like a functional harmony, the idea of chords largely come from Bach. But Bach was a nobody. He was so much of a nobody in his day that there are hundreds of pieces he's written that we lost because when he died, they sold it for the paper. Because Bach's music was more valuable as wrapping paper for butchers than it was as music. And so much of his music that we have now is preserved only because he wrote it and sent it as a job application, and it got hidden away by some bureaucrat in a file system that lasted hundreds of years. And then some musicologist somewhere was like, oh, I found evidence that Bach sent something here. Let's go look through it. And like, oh my goodness, we found it. Wonderful, yay, kind of stuff. But so many composers, like we have no way of knowing who's going to influence the next generation. It could be Hans Zimmer. It could be John Williams. It could be someone that's going to die that soon, that we'll never know them while they're alive. But 50 years from now, someone discovers their music and goes, this is awesome. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to take this for myself. I'm going to do my whole thing. And yeah, we have no way of knowing. How did I get on this rant? All right, I'm on this rant. I have no idea what started it. Oh, it was Dylan. Dylan made a comment about Mozart being mathematically stimulating and not inherently emotional. But so yeah, in fairness, going back to that, music as a method for self-expression wasn't an idea in the classical period. So the idea that music is a form of self-expression, that the composer can tell their own story, that the composer can have an idea of what emotions and what ideas they want their music to portray, that didn't come around until the Romantic period, like Beethoven, Hector Berlioz, those Romantic era composers. That's kind of what defines that genre. The difference between so like the Baroque period was very much about like establishing a lot of the modern music theory we have in terms of like, it was clarity. Like Baroque period was very much about, well, it comes back to the term Baroque. Baroque being very like extravagant. Baroque is actually a bit, at the time, was a vulgar term. It was like an insult to the music. Again, showing how like music is rarely appreciated fully in its own time. The term Baroque was used as a vulgar term to describe something that was over the top, unnecessarily frilly, unnecessarily extravagant. And so it's described as the Baroque period because the music was very extravagant. The architecture was very extravagant. Everything was extravagant and incredibly detailed. Then the classical period came around and the focus became about clarity of design. No longer showing off how clever the composer is, although that was still important, but more about writing music that the average person could enjoy. Then the Romantic period came about, and it was like, all right, screw tradition, screw the old forms, screw proper music. I'm going to write music that I want to write. I'm going to write music that portrays a story. I'm going to write music to express my emotions, not whatever this aristocrat who paid me to do it is for. This is my music, and I'm going to do what I want with it. That was the Romantic period. Then the Impressionistic period was very much exploring timbre and other things. So like Claude Debussy, one of the de facto Impressionistic composers, was all about elevating timbre, elevating sound for sound's sake, instrument choice for instrument choice, elevating that to the point of melody and rhythm. So the idea that a melody can be a theme, yeah, we know that. A rhythm can be a theme, but Claude Debussy established that timbre can be a theme. You can have a flute come in with an oboe and play a really pretty thing that doesn't really make sense because it's atonal. But the sound of it is so beautiful and so lush and so new that it becomes its own thing. That timbre became elevated to the point where the instrument choice and the colors you use in the orchestra became just as important as melody and just as important as rhythm. An idea that persists to this day. It's no longer which instrument can just play this part and just like, all right, the clarinet's playing that part. It becomes, all right, which instrument is the best, most expressive voice for this melody kind of thing. Then after the Impressionistic era came the Modernist era, which a lot of people hate. That's like Schoenberg and like the atonal stuff. In fairness, that all ended around the 80s. All right, modern composers don't really do that as much. But yeah, we have no idea of knowing what the most de facto definitive description of our era is until we're kind of all gone and past. Until the next wave comes and they tell us what they learned from us, until the next generation gets old enough to say what they learned, what they liked, what they took inspiration from. And so this is kind of like the tragedy of composers who have long lives is you can start on the cutting edge, but by the time you die, you're basically going to be considered like a conservative musician, someone who sticks to the old ways. I'm trying to think, was it Camille Saint-Saëns who had that happen, where he was like a very cutting edge romantic era composer, but he lived to be a composer for like 80 years, and so by the time he died, he was viewed as like this conservative old hat composer who never adapted kind of thing, which is just, again, kind of like the tragic kind of things. Wow, I'm kind of ranting right now. Hopefully you guys are learning some stuff. Hopefully you're enjoying this. Let's see here. Monef, welcome. Sean, Tolstoy literally wrote an entire essay called Why I Hate Mozart. He also hated Beethoven, literally thinking of their work as shallow trash with no depth of emotion. Exactly. Yes, so every generation changes. Yeah, so many people hated Mozart in the aftermath because, again, when this one composer from history gets put on a pedestal and everyone's like, well, we're going to do this because that's how he did it. Or this is how we're going to do it because that's how she did it. Or this is how this composer did it, or whatever. Like, these are the lessons we learned and must be preserved. This is the proper way to do it. When you're constantly told Mozart and Beethoven are the models to follow, that does invite resentment. We're like, no, that's not what I want to do. That's not what I want to compose. I want to do something different. And when you're told, no, different is wrong, which so many composers have done, I don't think there's a modern composer who hasn't been told that their way of writing is wrong. I have been told so many times that my love for melodies and like cool harmonies, it works against me because it's not cutting edge. It's not what I'm supposed to be doing to show I'm pushing the boundaries. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not trying to impress a bunch of academics. I'm not trying to be praised for my intellectual capabilities. I just like writing music. I like telling stories, and I like to combine the two. All right? So, yeah, lots of people hate the old masters because they view them as obstacles, as mountains to be overdone or possibly taken down. Sean, it is always weird to remember that Salieri was way more successful than Mozart in his day. True. Amadeus retcons history to suit Mozart's paranoia, but instead it was the other way around. Yes, Amadeus is not accurate at all. Salieri and Mozart were actually decent friends. Salieri was definitely, I believe, friends with Haydn, who was also a dear friend with Mozart. Sean, it's always weird to remember that Stravinsky and Holst were considered avant-garde. Yes! Yes, people who are now like the music that we have nowadays, that we feel like, oh, that's old music, that's classical music. It almost always started off as new and cutting edge. Mozart was new and cutting edge. Again, everybody has that chance to come up and be new, and it depends on who. Literally, it's just who influences the next generation. That's what determines what great music is who lives on, who influences the next generation. Awesome. I think I'm all caught up. So it has been like what, an hour and a half? So we didn't really get around to writing a bunch of music. My apologies. That is because, again, my computer has an OS and it's still getting set up, so we're just chatting. But yeah. So thank you, everyone who stopped by. Don't forget to like the stream. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to move on because I'm getting quite warm. I hope you enjoyed the stream. All right, so I'll see you all next week. Next week's not the last stream of the month, is it? Let's double check. All right, so I can't click on that one. I got on my other screen. My calendar's not popping up. Let's see here. Here we go. No, yeah, it's not next week. So in 2 weeks, we'll be doing the live feedback stream. But next week I'm going to be live, and I'm going to be exploring a new plugin I was sent that I am very, very excited about. So until next time, my friends, thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I certainly did. And I'll see you in the next video. All right? Bye-bye.